Hey everybody, it's Nick. For today's tutorial, we're going to continue to work on our digital fabrication script for our catenary vault or canopy. We're going to be adding the numbers to the parts and dots to the digital model to assist us with fabrication. And we're leaving off, from the last two videos where we had the model connectors finished and the model pattern, which are the Voronoi kind of holes. And we've got those on our cut sheet. And you can see the curves that we're working with are here. So we've got our outer curves, uh, one set of connectors, the other set of connectors, and then the Voronoi holes. And if you're combining, if you open up the script I gave you, it should pop in, or at least when you reference this surface up here, this is your base surface. Everything should pop in from before. Just make sure that your adjustments are right that you had. This is kind of a component to watch out for. Just make sure that the Voronoi holes are lined up with the correct parts. If not, you may have the wrong kind of source plane kind of plugged in. So just check that or come talk to one of us. Um, the rest of this is very similar to what we got from the other video about numbering. Be sure that you have Elefront installed because we're going to be using those dots, the text dot, and then be sure that you've got the text component of OpenNest because we're going to be using that for our labeling as well. So those you want OpenNest and Elefront installed to be able to do this tutorial, and that should simplify things for you. So what we're going to do is if you think about the old video, in order to make the text on the parts, we have to have a point that's on that's inside each of the parts, and hopefully a point that's not going to interfere with any other geometry. And we're pretty fortunate in that the way that these are set up, there aren't any connections at those corners. So that's what we're going to do. The same method as last time. Um, what I'm going to do is a little bit different. So you can't exactly copy paste what you had, but you're going to take the outer curve of these things. So the big triangle that we're going to cut out, the first thing we're going to cut out. And what I did was I turned it back into a surface. And this is going to simplify things a little bit. It's a little bit easier to work with surfaces to deconstruct them than it is to get curves and then to manipulate the data and then get the points. There's a lot of different parts we need. So turn these into surfaces. That's a boundary surface, and then I go ahead and flatten that because I don't need that data structure anymore. Then go ahead and explode it, deconstruct it. I'm going to get the vertices. And as before, I'm just going to put on a list item component, and I'm going to get the first point in each list. Now, these have been manipulated a bit, so point 0 is actually a little bit different for almost every piece. That's okay. It doesn't need to be consistently in the same corner, just so long as there's an offset. Okay. And in order to get the offset, remember we're going to make a vector. We need to make a 2-point vector from the center. So we use area to get the center of each piece. Make a 2-point vector from the outer point to the center. That's what this is, 2-point vector. Multiply that by some amount, and that gives us, if we move it, it gives us the point, right? And that's what we've got. So we're gonna pull a point from here. Just make sure that this point is plugged in for A, so the corner point, and B is the center point, and that should work fine. And in my case, 0.25 is a quarter of an inch, and that actually works out pretty well for me to get that point in this location. And then in order to position the text, you're gonna put the OpenNest text component out there, and for the location, we're gonna take that point. So that's pretty easy. And then actually get the numbering, I'm going to go all the way over to my base surface. And what I've done is I've just made copies of it. I've just made a surface container and I've connected it to the original surface just to make it easier to like work with, rather than having to go all the way back up here. So I just kind of create a copy of it. So I've got that surface plugged in to list length. And I have a panel here just to make sure I know how many panels I have. I have 58 panels. Plug in that into a series. Series starts at 0, increments by 1, 58 times. And the size of the text is 0.2. Remember the offset's 0.25, so the size is 0.2. And that gives you the text. And all I did was, because remember this is based on the location, it's already on the cut sheet. So all I've got to bake are the curves. And so what I did was I just made a little curve component, and I mean heck, I could actually just flatten it here. So now I've got all these curves, okay, and I can bake those. And then the last part's pretty easy compared to that. We're gonna put dots on the model, and to get a dot, I got the dot object. I made a copy of my surface, same thing, just got from my surface here. The original base surfaces. Find the centroid, put a dot there. That's it. That's all I'm gonna do for this. Okay. And you'll notice in my other compared to my other video, I changed the preview settings. So I made a preview component, plugged it in for these things, and I gave it kind of a black color, like a transparent black. That's gonna really clearly show me where those openings are. And then I have a little thing here where I I made a merge structure and a boundary surface to get that kind of cut out so I can see what the openings look like. And I made a little swatch that's kind of like cardboard or something like that, but please don't make it out of cardboard. Um, and that's just going to help me kind of visualize things. I want to be able to see the kind of figure ground of each piece, and I want to clearly see contrast so that I can understand where the zip tie holes are. Okay. And so that if you once you've got that, you pretty much should have all your parts. I'm going to go ahead and hide. Go ahead and hide all this stuff here. Let's see here, or at least turn preview off. Got one surface open here. There we go. I turned that off too. Okay, so this is your cut sheet, and if you get here, you're ready for the last video where we're going to go ahead and nest those parts. All right, I'll see you then.